Every time the topic of American fast battleship equipped with the iconic 16-inch gun comes up, the famous Iowa class usually get most of the spotlight. While the Iowa are the peak of battleship design equipped with the latest technology and armament of the time, these advanced battleships were barely tested in real combat in the Second World War, unlike their predecessors. Today we'll have a look at the first of American fast battleship, the North Carolina classes. The designing phase of the class started in 1935 as the US Navy were looking for a new type of battleship with faster speed, armor and armament to escort the new fleet carriers and to counter the Japanese Konko-class battle cruisers. However, due to the limitation of the Washington Naval Treaty, limiting the displacement of ships to 35,000 tons, many upgrades and design plans could not be implemented. The design of this new revolutionary battleship was changed several times to cope with the treaty's limitation, and many radical designs never come to reality past the designing papers. The main gun was originally intended to be 9 14-inch cannons due to the Second London Naval Treaty's limitation. However, once it's clear that the US main rival in the Pacific, the Japanese Empire, was not obeying the restriction of the armament, the main gun was switched to a more powerful 16-inch guns. Although the construction have already begun, the new gun fit perfectly in the new turret. The construction of two ships began in 1937 and 1938, resulting in the first two fast battleships with a speed of 27 knots. BB-55 North Carolina and BB-56 Washington was launched in 1940. At launch, the North Carolina has a length of 728 feet and a maximum beam of 108 feet. The ship has a fully loaded displacement of 44,800 tons with a crew complement of 1,880 sailors. The ship's main battery consists of 9 Mark VI 16-inch guns, which were the most powerful armament the US Navy could fit on a ship at the time of construction. The ship also has 10 Mark 12 dual 5-inch multi-purpose gun turrets as secondary armaments and long-range anti-aircraft defense. As the North Carolina was designed as carrier escort, the ship was fitted with state-of-the-art anti-aircraft guns at the time of its construction. This consists of several short-range 1.1/75 caliber guns, 50 caliber machine guns, and 20mm Oerlikon cannons. For medium-range anti-aircraft guns, the ship has several quadruple 40mm Beaufort cannons. In the late war period, these anti-aircraft guns would be enhanced further to deal with the threat of kamikaze attack in the Pacific theater. Both ships saw extensive service as their launch coincided with the US entry into the Second World War from the attack from Pearl Harbor. For the lead ship North Carolina, at first she was sent to reinforce the British home fleet in the Atlantic. However, due to the dire situation in the Pacific, she was called back in mid-1942, just in time for the Guadalcanal campaign. Arriving in the Pacific and joining Task Force 16, North Carolina first saw combat in the Battle of Eastern Solomon. While escorting the carrier Enterprise, the fleet came under attack from Japanese carrier-borne dive bomber and torpedo bombers. Defending the carrier, the North Carolina opened up with her anti-aircraft armaments. The anti-aircraft barrage from North Carolina was so powerful, nearby ship mistook the smoke from AA guns as fire raging on board the ship. Admiral Kincaid aboard the Enterprise radioed the North Carolina, "Are you on fire?" as he thought the battleship was hit by a bomb. In a matter of 8 minutes, the ship took down 7 Japanese aircraft in her first battle and sustained very minor damage. Since her first battle, the North Carolina would see extensive combat throughout the war. In 1942, the ship was hit by a torpedo launched from a submarine and underwent repairs. After returning from repairs, The North Carolina would act as carrier escort and shore bombardment unit for the rest of the war, seeing combat in Tarawa, the Mariana Islands, Okinawa, and Iwo Jima, and many other areas of operation. Unfortunately, the ship was involved in a friendly fire incident in the Battle of Okinawa, where a 5-inch shell from friendly destroyers struck the ship, killing 3 men on board. While North Carolina combat operations mostly consist of carrier escort and bombardment of key areas, Washington's record is quite different from her sister ship in many ways. In early 1942, as part of Task Force 39, Washington was sent to bolster the British home fleet in the Atlantic. On their way, Rear Admiral John Wilcock on board his flagship, the Washington, was somehow thrown overboard and his body could not be recovered due to rough seas. It is believed that he suffered a heart attack. In late April of the same year, Washington was assisting a convoy escort from British ISO to the Soviet Union. In one particular escort, a British battleship in the same convoy in front of the Washington, the King George V, accidentally rammed the destroyer, splitting it in two. Washington, which were directly behind the King George, could not change course, and a depth charge on the destroyer exploded, damaging Washington's operation system. Luckily, the damage was light. Although it seems like the ship is suffering from bad luck, she was not to be remembered for her misfortune. In mid-1942, Washington was sent to the Pacific. During the Guadalcanal campaign, a U.S. detachment, including Washington, was sent to deter Japanese bombardment of Henderson Field, a vital airfield crucial to the American air power in Guadalcanal. This battle would be known today as the Second Naval Battle of Guadalcanal. In the middle of a night of November 14, 1942, as the U.S. detachment including Battleship Washington and South Dakota and 4 destroyers was searching for the Japanese ship near the Salvo Islands, radar aboard the Washington detected Japanese ships. Shortly after, the 2 battleships opened fire, but with no results. Soon after, a hectic night battle broke out between the smaller escort ships. In the close-quarter brawl, 3 destroyers leading the force were put out of action in quick succession by accurate fire from the Japanese cruisers and destroyers. In return, Washington managed to seriously damage destroyer Ayanami with her secondary armaments. However, after the initial contact, South Dakota suffered an electrical failure at a crucial moment, rendering the ship blind. Silhouetted by the burning destroyers, South Dakota was soon spotted by Japanese ships, and the ship came under heavy fire, taking several hits including a 14-inch shell from Japanese battleship Kirishima. While South Dakota was taking the brunt of the Japanese shells, Washington remained undetected in front of the South Dakota. After identifying a large target the Washington was tracking to be an enemy battleship, the Washington opened fire at point-blank range of 5,800 yards. Immediately scoring major hits on Kirishima, Washington kept up her barrage. After firing 75 16-inch and 105-inch shells, Washington scored 20 hits with her main guns and 17 secondary hits on Kirishima. Receiving major damage from Washington, the Kirishima was a burning wreck with damaged steering, main gun, and excessive flooding. Soon Washington was under attack from Japanese torpedoes, but none hit the battleship. At 3:25 in the morning, Kirishima sank along with destroyer Ayanami, which was scuttled after the battle. In the end, the US force managed to deter the Japanese bombardment of Henderson Field, although at great cost. From this battle, Washington became the only US battleship to sink an enemy battleship in combat. And to top it off, the Washington sank the ship it was designed to counter, as Kirishima is a Konko-class battleship. Since the Second Naval Battle of Guadalcanal, Washington would participate in many battles, escorting carriers and bombarding key positions. However, the battleship misfortune was also catching up. On the night of the 1st of February 1944, due to poor visibility, Washington collided with battleship Indiana, resulting in a severely damaged bow and the loss of 6 men. Washington was then sent to be repaired at Puget Sound. After repair, Washington would join the battle at the Mariana Islands, Peleliu, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa. By the end of the war, both of the North Carolina have impressive battle records under their keel. Battleship North Carolina ended the war with 15 battle stars and 24 aircraft shot down, while Washington received 13 battle stars and 2 enemy ships sunk, including a battleship. Both ships went on their final operation, Operation Magic Carpet, to bring US soldiers home from the Pacific Islands. By war's end, the North Carolina no longer have any use, as the age of the battleship had come to an end, and while the newer battleships like the Iowas would stay relevant, both North Carolina would be broken for scrap. However, this was not to be for USS North Carolina, as she was bought by the state of North Carolina to be a museum ship and to serve as a memorial to the citizens of North Carolina who perished in the war. Unfortunately, Washington was sent to the scrapyard. Her bad luck finally caught up to her. Today, Battleship North Carolina is berthed at Wilmington, North Carolina as a museum ship, still in her World War II configuration, and is open for visitors. The first and the last of the North Carolina still afloat.